Welcome, tennis fans, to a new edition of Changeover Chat in the Tennis One app. I'm Randy Master, and today we welcome to the show Jeff Gearheart. Jeff is a 25-year tennis industry veteran. I've known Jeff for a long time. I've known Jeff probably for about half of those years. He's one of the hardest working guys in the business for sure, and I just want to welcome him to the show. Welcome, Jeff. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it, as always.
Well, I want to start with just the name Sportmaster, the fact that you have a tennis court behind you. A lot of people think of Sportmaster as simply a tennis surfacing company. You guys are into so much more. It's a big, big business. Why don't we start with tennis as your core business, and then we can talk about some of the other sports you're involved in and really a business as a whole.
Okay, sure. Well, so we're a manufacturer of all the acrylic coatings that you see on tennis courts, sports surfaces. We've been producing sports surfaces since about the mid 70s. The company actually started producing equipment and pavement equipment, application stuff for like seal coating and other pavement maintenance in 1969, and then kind of expanded from there, got into the sports surfacing world in the mid 70s, and just kind of kept growing as a manufacturer, based in Northern Ohio, so all American made, everything we do. We've been growing over the years as a franchise system. We sell through the Sealmaster franchise system around the country. Today we've got just over 100 locations, all the major cities throughout the U.S., and we cover all of the states. We do international as well, distributors, installers. So we're pretty much spread out from a footprint. As you mentioned, we make sport surfaces for tennis, repair products. We kind of are known as a one-stop shop for contractors. We keep all the tools, equipment, and just support them because they're the ones that are building these tennis courts everywhere that we love. And now with other sports, pickleball, basketball obviously is a huge thing, running tracks. We even do specialized coatings for like the green bike lanes you see going down many of the streets now, delineating the safe bike lanes. Special colored zones for parking lots, zoos, you name it, any kind of specially colored asphalt. So we're kind of into all that coatings for pavement.
So Jeff, let's say, I'm obviously a tennis player. You're a tennis player. I don't know who would win between us. I'm thinking it might be me, but
yeah, you definitely would.
Regardless, if I want to put a court in my backyard right now, or a school wants to build tennis courts, or they want to resurface courts, or a friend wants to build a tennis court, what's the first? Sometimes you're wondering what the first step is. Do I call a contractor? Do I call Sportmaster? What's that process look like when somebody wants to get the ball rolling on building a court or a series of courts?
Sure, that's a great question, Randy. We like people to reach out to us, honestly, first, because we have a pretty good network around us, just from networking all these years from our customers. We're part of the American Sports Builders Association. We're a longtime member, so I know a lot of sport, related architects. But generally, the way it'll work, either call or we visit our website. There's locate installer forms. There's just contact us for information. And what we normally do is start with, we'll say it's a backyard court, find out where they are. Then usually what I'll do is I'll connect with our local franchisee who supports all the local contractors. And I know a lot of them myself, but we'll reach out to the contractors that we know and trust the most. Depending on what kind of project it is, we've got a lot of installers that only do the repair and the surfacing, the coating work, and then we have some that build from the ground up. Most of the ones that do surfacing also have their go-to paving companies or concrete companies, because one of the pitfalls, not to say there are not a lot of good asphalt or concrete companies, but there's more specifics when it comes to coating courts, tennis courts, basketball, pickleball, any of the above. You need to have proper site work, drainage, excavation, the whole thing, slope on the court. or else you could have blisters and, peeling coatings. So I would recommend reaching out first, and we can at least help get you the right scope, point you in the right direction, get you somebody who knows how to build courts versus just a driveway or a parking lot. And then depending on how big that project is, if it's a home, new build or a huge municipal project, sometimes the contractors can handle, the ground up guys can handle maybe a home site work, or, but sometimes if it's a big project like a municipal, we'd probably have them reach out to an architect that we know and trust, that, maybe a member of American Sports Builders, or someone who can build a huge scope and knows how to do it right.
And the process is basically the same if I went out or you went out and saw a public court or a high school court. There's grass growing. I've played on those courts, trust me, a lot. As a junior player growing up. There's grass growing. It almost becomes unplayable. And a lot of times you look at it and it really hurts as a tennis and somebody skateboarding on it. And as as a tennis player and somebody that really cares about the industry, and I know you're the same way, sometimes you just want to do something about it. And do you need to, or you send a contractor out to go look at the job and how difficult it might be to repair, and then you give them an opinion on this thing, we need to burn this thing down, or we can make some repairs in the cracks and probably get it playable.
Yeah, we try to be realistic with people, because a budget is a real thing. Some people don't have the budget to do a full rebuild, even though that's really what needs to be done, for the best case scenario. But there's a lot of band-aids that can kick that stone down the road for a while. If there's just cracks, or if the surface is just really faded and the flaking off. I mean, there's a lot of things where you can take an old court or bank of courts and make it look brand new, and at least buy them some time. If it's really cracked up and it's what they call alligatoring, where the cracks are turning into potholes and just falling apart, there's also a time where we got to be honest with them and say, listen, anything you do to this, it's probably not going to last very long, and it's just better to save your money and maybe do some fundraising and try to get a rebuild or overlay, something like that. So that's one thing we try to do too, is just be honest with people and give them kind of the options. All right, well, if you do this, you might buy yourself another 3-4 years. If you do this, you're pretty much just throwing money away.
Right. Well, and nobody wants to do that, but everybody in the tennis world wants to make all these courts beautiful. And it would be nice if there were more people like you that will go out and talk people through doing this important work. So, Jeff, Sportmaster has come up a lot to people in the tennis industry over the last few years, and one of the reasons is really the marketing efforts that you guys have made in the industry, whether it's becoming the official surface of some big ATP or WTA events, whether it's your other partnerships, USPTA and across the board. Can you first tell us who those partnerships are with in the ATP WTA world, and then more industry focused like the USPTA, and what they've meant to brand awareness throughout the world?
Yeah, hey, you forgot a real important one when you were talking there. You forgot Tennis One, the Tennis One app.
Oh my God! Well, I was going to talk about that for the last half an hour of the show, but
okay, we'll save it for them. Okay.
But
yeah, so
well, this is the Tennis One app, so people already know. So
yeah. Well, Randy, so USPTA, that's been one of our long-term relationships. We've been kind of the I guess a partner, a sponsor, official court surface of USPTA since the early 2000s, back when they were headquartered in Houston, Texas. That all started, they had a couple of clay courts that they did video series on, and it was kind of behind like a just an office building, and it was a little bit too much for them to maintain, to do the clay all the time, just to do some video series here and then. So we connected them with one of our good builders there that put some post-tension slabs on it, and we made hard courts, actually put our cushion system in there for them. And that kind of started the relationship. A previous guy that I worked with here, that was our international director, you remember Don, he had a lot of relationships there, and they actually called on Don, and we kind of put our heads together. And so ever since then, we've been kind of a partner with them, and that's been a great relationship. A lot of good, tennis pros and friends there. So that just, it's networking like we've all done in the industry for a long time, and they get to know us, we get to know them, and we get calls and emails from a lot of the pros that are integrated into clubs and facilities, a lot of them even schools and colleges, you name it. So that goes a long way. You try to be a trusted partner and give them the right recommendations for. I mean, their court is their office. That's where they're out teaching, making a living, having fun. So we kind of work hand in hand. This last year, we've been surfacing pickleball courts for decades. But this last year, we actually have a deal now with USA Pickleball. That's the governing body in the U.S. And George and the whole group there has been great to work with. So just that's another one that we're just networking, working with all the ambassadors, figuring out the best way to get more courts on the ground. And obviously you've helped early on too with the networking. We've connected with a lot of tournaments, starting with the City Open back in, I think, what was it? It's been probably, gosh, maybe 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the ATP, 500 WTA. It's been a great event there in Washington, D.C. Connecticut for a while. That was sad to see Connecticut leave town, but that was a great event.
It was.
Since then, we've also partnered with the Atlanta Open, the 250 there, and then Montreal, the Rogers Cup. So we're just kind of networking, getting with more of the tournament directors and the folks in all those areas, and it just kind of helps to legitimize the brand more. Get to know, bigger venues, and it's been great. So yeah, that's helped a lot just from that.
Well, I want to talk about, when you talk about these tournaments, whether it's the Rogers Cup or the City Open or any of the events that you're the official surface for, that is a big, big undertaking, because everybody, whether it's the players, the tournament directors, the ATP, WTA, the commentators, all they're talking about is the speed, and they talk about it on air, they talk about it behind the scenes. There's a lot of pressure there. And I wanted to know, what that process looks like in deciding exactly how fast or slow the courts are going to be, and then what the testing process is before those players get on the courts and start the qualifying and then the main draw.
Yeah. So that's a conversation we have with the tournament director, pretty much right off the bat, is, hey, what speed are you looking for? Sportmaster, we were one of the early companies when the ITF, International Tennis Federation, started doing the PACE classification program. We were pretty much one of the first ones in to, we would basically coat panels with to their requirements, with different textures and different coating mixes, and we would send them. They do that every 3-year reclassification. Basically, you send it to an independent lab that they've they've got a list of labs that are part of this program. You send them so many panels, and then you send a portion of the same sheet of panels to the ITF. Both the labs do their testing, coefficient of friction, restitution. They have different tests that actually kind of hone in on ball speed, the bounce and all the above. So then after they do that, they give you the results, and then you go back and classify in the different speeds. So when it first started out, at the beginning, they had slow, medium, and fast. Pretty much a couple go rounds, maybe, I don't know if it was 3 or 6, probably 6 to 9 years after they started, it became broader. So now they have slow, medium, fast, and fast. So we try to come up with mixes to send and test and get all those speeds. And we've been getting all 5 paces for quite a few years, and we just retest every 3. And it has a lot to do with the aggregate that's in the coatings. Basically, if you ever see a slow motion tennis ball, comes in at an angle, hits the surface, and the ball actually flattens out and slides, and then it shoots up. So generally, the smoother the surface is, the quicker that it slides and bounces up, and it bounces low. So it's fast and low, a little harder to get a hold of. And when you have more of a texture on the surface, you have kind of a grittier, more angular cut sand, then the ball hits the surface, and as it's flattened out and it's sliding, that texture is grabbing and slowing the ball down. And then when it bounces up at a higher trajectory. It's easier to get to. So that's kind of the far off between the fast and the slow, and then there's everything in between. So it's pretty interesting, and we just talked to the tournament director. Depending on like the U.S. Open Series, they might want like a faster, medium fast, and all those tournaments within that swing, they kind of want to be consistent to that. Where if you're on the West Coast, Indian Wells, they like it really nice and slow. So you just kind of tailor to what they want, and we supply those materials off factory blended with that right mix in it. And then we're lucky to have really good installers on each of those events that do a great job, working hard out in the heat, putting the materials down and getting it consistent.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those contractors. I saw them in Connecticut. It was like a war zone out there in a good way. They work so hard. It's 100 degrees, and it's I have an appreciation for what those guys do. And you even jumped in there.
Yeah, we were
that.
doing. Yeah, that was fun in Connecticut. We were doing some little promotional. I had our bright red. Remember, that was the first time we used the bright red out there.
Yeah.
Pop everybody's eyeballs out. But now it's fun. We try to get out there, and I definitely appreciate all the hard work because I'm usually sore for probably a week after I'm out there working.
Well, I think you have. I'd love to see a lot of people when they hear the Brad Gilberts or the Paul Anacones of the world talk about what the surface is playing like because they've been down there. They probably hit on it a couple times. Can you show us? But a lot of people don't see what it looks like up close. Can you show us some samples of that and specify what looks like a slow court and what's a fast court?
Yeah, sure. And that is a good thing to mention too, because there's a give and take a little bit. The faster a court is, for example, here's a little sliver of a panel. You can see through the thing, but you can kind of see the shine, a little bit of the smoother surface. That would be more like a fast playing court, because the ball's going to hit that and it's going to really slide and then pop up slow or pop up fast and low. So that's a fast surface. I'll show you the extreme. This would be, what would that be, Randy?
Wow, that is gritty. There is a lot of sand in there concentrated. That's my kind of surface. I mean, I like to, it's got to be as slow as possible. And
that is definitely slow. And that's the one thing to mention too, if you have a facility and you're thinking about one or the other, and that's maybe where some people might go to the medium slow or medium, because you'll get a grittier look. If you have the sun shining from another angle, you might see more of the squeegee application marks a little bit. That's definitely, you're going to go through some tennis balls with that too. That's gonna tear up some ball fuzz a little bit. But it's a long wearing surface too. It'll be there a long time because that sand actually helps it be a little more durable. It actually takes a lot of the wear. And then here's kind of a middle of the road, like a medium texture. This is what you see at a lot of park and rec and high schools, things like that. It's kind of good, tailored for pretty much all the players. And in some colleges, universities, coaches, they have different mentalities. And if they have a bunch of heavy hitters, they might want to speed their home courts up, at their home facility, because it favors their serve and the real heavy hitters. Where if somebody's really strong in the volley game, they may try to slow it down so that if the heavy hitters come in, they could actually have time to get there and really win on the volley. So it's an interesting chess match kind of with the surface.
Well, you look at the color behind you, that red. I'd love to see more tournaments do that. I mean, there have been variations of it all over the world, but I don't think anything that extreme. But there's so many colors that you guys can play with, whether it's tennis but not an ATP or WTA Tour event, whether it's pickleball. How much have how much of the colors really changed over the years? Because to me, that's such an exciting part of what you do, is testing these various colors, seeing what your clients like about them and maybe don't like about them. But what has that process been like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of all the different colors, but I think it just adds interest, and we want people to talk about courts, to be excited about getting out and staying active and playing and having fun. So, like our standard colored card, the colors we offer, we have kind of the pretty good mix of them, but over the last decade, we've kind of added a lot of these faster, or these brighter oranges and yellows and bright red, we'll call it, because traditional colors, the reds were kind of more of a brick, an earth tone kind of thing, not too offensive. So there's two schools of thought, and we kind of have a little for everybody. If somebody wants more of a traditional mix, then they get the greens and sometimes the reds. Obviously, the USGA and the onset of the blue and green, that's super popular. We even have a system that's a little different, we call fusion. So all of our standard pigments that we offer in a liquid, and we have kind of like the paint store, we have drums of like a neutral base, which is kind of unique to our industry. So we have a 50-50 easy mix field blend we call fusion. So we've got over probably close to 100 different color combinations now by mixing these, and it's kind of fun to see. Installers will send us pictures back, as we'll post them on social media, Instagram, Facebook. So I love it. It's great to see. Our friend Eddie Gonzalez in Atlanta this year, I don't know if you saw that they did the DraftKings event. We actually supplied, he was in Georgia, so we kind of named one Georgia Peach. We put together a fusion color for him, and that was a great event. And I think everybody kind of enjoyed the change of pace.
Yeah, and you specifically, your company and other surfacing companies and the people that are really involved in the grassroots growth of tennis are so important. I would think with the kids, whether they're tournament players or they're part of the NJTL program, I would think it's so exciting for them to see something different from a green court. You guys really play a big part, in my opinion, of building tennis and growing tennis based on some of this innovation with court surfaces and colors. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a pride factor too. We see a lot of people with either schools or professional sport teams, and they want to have that in their backyard or their school. Um, it's that's what's really fun, and kids love that. Again, they're proud of their local high school or their favorite college or pro athlete, and whether it's a different sport or not. I mean, and we've got, obviously, with the Lakers, we have Laker courts going in like crazy with yellow and purple out in California now, and pretty much all over. So it's fun. It adds a buzz to it, and that's what you want. You want people excited about getting out and doing something.
Jeff, you've been doing this for quite a while, and you've worked with a lot of contractors in a lot of different places all over the world. I want to know, what is the coolest court you have ever built, whether it's for a celebrity, whether just aesthetically you put it on the edge of a cliff somewhere. You've probably seen some really cool aesthetics over the years. What kind of sticks out in your mind when it comes to that
Yeah.
part of it?
Well, ironically enough, we've got some installers that, like in Southern California, do a lot of celebrity courts all the time, and I found it interesting. But there's a lot of celebrity courts that are very simple. I mean, it's beautiful around it. Don't get me wrong. The custom walls and fencing and things like that. But you'd be surprised how many are just one, solid green, which is great. I mean, it looks classy and it's nice. But as far as events go or facilities, I don't recall any like hanging off the side of a cliff. Or I mean, we've all seen some of those,
Yeah.
on the internet. But one of the probably the nicer facilities, we were the surface of a Challenger out in Maui, the Royal Lahaina tennis ranch, and it's a beautiful site right on the beach at Maui. And I know even the ATP had the most scenic. It was like the top 10 most scenic Challenger events or surfaces, and that was in the top 10 back in, I think, 2017. but I mean, who doesn't want to play tennis in Maui? And I remember even Taylor Fritz saying that he was, he had to admit it was a little hard to concentrate on tennis when you could hear the Maui waves crashing next to you. But that was one of probably the nicest facilities that I really remember seeing.
Right. So as far as marketing, you guys have really ramped up your internet presence over the years, and your website is beautiful. If somebody out there today watching this interview, and now there are millions of people watching Changeover Chat all over the world, Jeff. I mean, we're talking, it's a huge audience. But if you had to talk, if you had to speak to that audience of tennis fanatics, who want to learn more about your company, don't necessarily want to build a court tomorrow, but really want to learn more about your company, what would you tell them to do?
Well, I would say first, visit our website. Check out all of our social media pages. The bottom of our website, you'll see all the different direct links to all the pages I mentioned. Even if you like Pinterest, we've got tons of pictures on there. I think it's good because they can kind of look around and see some real world. Instead of looking at a color chip card, you can see some real world installations all around the country and around the world, depending on whatever sport you're looking at. So it's nice to get some ideas. Even on our website, we have a little court designer tool where you can go on and you can select whether it's a tennis court or basketball or pickleball, and you can play around, plug in the colors in, and see multi-courts. And then, if at any point after you're looking around, reach out to us, myself, any of our local franchisees. They're all listed on there by location. We're always happy to talk to somebody, because we get a lot of people that are dreaming and planning. We have scopes and specifications on there. We can kind of point them in the right direction and then help them kind of go where they need to go, because it might be a 5-year plan or more or less. So yeah, I mean, we welcome people to reach out, and there's no sales pressure. We're not there breathing down their neck. We're not going to be calling them every day saying, hey, you ready to put that quarter in yet? Right? We're just trying to support basically our customers, end users, the actual installers, and pretty much get more tennis and pickleball and basketball courts on the ground everywhere.
Well, finally, I want to end this, and this has been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can do this in person like we used to do. I used to go out to Sandusky. We used to have some great times out there. Hopefully we can do it again soon. Lastly, I want to talk for a couple of hours about your Tennis One partnership now. Do you have the time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in all seriousness, Tennis One really appreciates you being a part of what we're doing. I think you see what we're doing from an innovation standpoint, and really we're trying to bring the game together into our world and to grow it just like everybody else. And I think we're doing it in a way that is getting a lot of people's attention because it's so different and because it's so innovative. And I think you understand that, and we appreciate you being a part of what we're doing.
Well, yeah, thanks, Randy. And I appreciate you. We've been buddies for a long time, and I know you're always on the leading edge of the next big thing, and I think you nailed it with Tennis One. I mean, what you guys are doing, it's great. We're glad to be a part of it, and got a lot of cool ideas going forward together.
All right, Jeff. Well, it's been a pleasure as usual, and thanks so much for coming on.
Very welcome, Randy. Thanks for having me.